Welcome to the Society for International Development, United States Chapter 2022 Annual Dinner. I'm Catherine Rafelson, President of SID-US. And I'm really delighted to be here with all of you tonight. I've seen so many old friends, and we have so many new members here since we last gathered for our dinner 3 years ago. Welcome to all of our SID-US members and friends, old and new, who are here tonight. We couldn't pull off an event like this without the substantial support provided by our sponsors. Nearly 50 organizations made this evening possible, and I want to acknowledge the exceptional support of our platinum sponsors, Chemonics, DAI, and RTI. Thank you so much. Little did we know 3 years ago, when we convened to honor Paul Pullman, that it would be our last dinner, and in fact, one of our last in-person events for a very long time. Thank you to all who stuck with us, and in fact helped us to grow and expand during these challenging times. The Society for International Development has remained strong and relevant through many changes since its inception over 60 years ago. As many of you know, SID was founded in 1957 to serve as a global forum for international development professionals. The Washington chapter was formed in the 80s when SID moved to Europe, and has remained the largest and most active chapter of the network. Our main purpose is to provide a forum for information exchange and networking, and we do this through our many events, which range from our work groups focusing on specific sectors to our large programs like our annual conference, our career fairs, and this dinner. And we work to connect our members with each other and with donors through events like the receptions we held 2 weeks ago with USAID mission directors and program officers, which many of you attended. And we also focus a lot of our energy on professional development for our student members and young professionals through workshops, through mentoring programs, our career fairs, and internships. This has always been important to us, and in fact, we have with us tonight a number of students and young professionals, and we're particularly grateful to RTI for sponsoring some of our student seats. Thank you. We have students here tonight from Georgetown, George Washington University, Howard University, Gallaudet, Thunderbird, the University of Florida, American University, University of Pennsylvania, ASU, Florida International University, Randolph College, Montgomery College, and probably others that I may have missed. And I would like to say to these students and the young professionals who are here, we have a bunch of young professionals in the balcony, as well as interspersed throughout. I would like to say to all of you that I hope you will be inspired tonight by our honorees and by all the people around you as you figure out your career paths. And I look forward to working for some of you someday. One of the founders of SID was a man named Andy Rice, a true visionary whose work included research that laid the groundwork for the Peace Corps. Andy placed a particular emphasis on promoting and mentoring youth in development. And so, in tribute to Andy, every year we present an award named for him, the Andrew E. Rice Award for Leadership and Innovation by a young professional in international development. We used to present this award at our annual conference and had just made the decision to move it to our dinner when the COVID pandemic suspended everything. I am beyond pleased to be able to resume the presentation of this important award for the first time since 2019. Many of you have heard from our past Rice Award recipients, and you know how inspiring they are. The applications typically come from a range of countries, including the US. They are engaged in a wide variety of activities across different sectors, and they are truly impressive. This year was no exception, and the decision to pick just one winner was truly challenging. I want to thank the committee that helped us make this difficult decision: Sylvia Maigret, Chizi Igwe, Alexis Bonnell, Gloria Steele, Leanne Glover, Kalyani Mohan, and Will Rice, who is actually the son of Andy Rice, founder of SID, and for whom our award is named. Will has participated on our Rice Award Committee for several years and helps ensure that we keep in mind the ideals his father held dear throughout his career and his vision for SID. So I would like to invite Will, who is here with us tonight, to the stage to tell you about this year's Rice Award winner.
Thank you, Catherine. Let's have a round of applause for Catherine for putting this whole thing together. I know it's not easy. I've had the pleasure of talking to Nazrat at the dinner just now, so I know a little more about him than when I wrote this introduction. But there was something that struck me in how they pursued the idea of international development that I wanted to share with you. Andrew Rice and Nazrat Khalid grew up in diametrically opposite circumstances. My father was bathed in the privilege of a nation full of peace and plenty, Nazrat in the insecurity of a region rife with war and want. Yet they both developed a view of how we proceed together that's a hybrid and also reinforcing. Andy Rice once said, "I believe that the right path to a better world is expanding individual freedom combined with cooperative endeavor." And he lived that truth. Even though he founded or co-founded and was a member of many organizations, including, of course, SID, he also followed his own nose. Soon after the Second World War, at the dawn of the Cold War and the beginning of global decolonization, he started a newsletter called the Doorway to the 20th Century. It was kind of what we know now as a blog. It was an aggregation of news and opinion from leading sources in what was then known as foreign aid. And as far as I know, he was the publisher, editor, and the only staffer of that publication. And the way it differed from modern day blogs was that rather than being distributed digitally, it was mimeographed and mailed, if any of you remember what a mimeograph machine is. My mother one time complained that a lot of our vacations were delayed by the need to literally crank out another issue of Doorway to the 20th Century. Our honoree tonight has similarly worked through many important organizations, including the World Bank. But what drew the attention of the Rice Award Committee was something he started on his own. A seal is an online marketplace that connects artisans in Nazrat's native Afghanistan with customers around the world. When Afghanistan fell into turmoil a couple of years after ASEAL was founded in 2019, Nazrat drafted his platform into humanitarian service. Even though he founded it alone, Unlike Doorway to the 20th century, a SEAL is a collaboration. It engages the services of young professionals all around the world, including, importantly, women in Afghanistan. In his application, Nasrat wrote, "The future in the development space belongs to those that create platforms that engage ordinary people." To my ears, that's an updated version of Andy Rice's vision, a vision that transcends eras and technology. And just as I know that if he was around today, Andy Rice would publish Doorway to the 20th Century online, I'm sure that if he had to, Nasrat would do his work using a mimeograph machine. That's why it gives me great pleasure to award the 2022 Andrew E. Rice Award for Leadership and Innovation by a Young Professional in International Development to Nasrat Khalid. How should we do this?
Hello, everyone. It's an absolute honor to be here with you all. It's strange times that we are at. Unfortunately, unfortunate news keeps coming out on such consistent manner. Problems we are facing are coming to us in such fierce ways. I hear a lot of people openly giving up on progress. There's so much more war. We have more refugees. Countries are falling. Basic food supply chains are struggling. Food insecurity keeps going up. People's trust on institutions, and frankly, the future is getting dark. There's more, obviously, natural disasters, climate crisis, child malnutrition, gender-based violence, a ton of division, many more issues that my 7-minute speech will not be able to cover. Thank you. So, my name is Nasrat Khalid. That's Nasrat. 5 years ago, I started a platform called ASEEL app. It's ASEEL, ASEEL, app, as in your mobile phone apps. The meaning of ASEEL is authentic, real. Wanted to share a little bit about my life. The first 10 years of my life, I was an Afghan refugee child in Pakistan. This is after the Civil War in the 90s. There were 5 million of us, Afghan refugees there. I was raised never asking for anything because we didn't really have much. I just went with the flow. Adding value to my parents is found Afghan refugee school by sticking in the computer lab at least 6 hours a day. I remember a very different conversation on the issues we were facing back then compared to today. But somehow it's the same vibes. It's the same mentality. The second 10 years of my life, still a refugee for the most part. We didn't have travel documents like that. Not allowed to study standard or higher education, technical education, given our refugee status. We couldn't open bank accounts. We couldn't start a business. Often I would see signs of international development as I was growing up in refugee schools, school accessories, little bags and notebooks. Sometimes on refugee ID cards, temporary housing, and so on for the most part. There was not a lot of opportunities for us at the time. Not much inspiration to look up to other than on that computer, the scarce dial-up internet and some of the people on the other side of the screen that I would interact with. In the early 2000s, for a little kid like me, there was not much of a platform. Certainly not many people talked about a bright future. Later at 16 or so in 2008, I went back to Afghanistan. My first job as a computer instructor with a USAID-funded program. Fast forward, I spent the next 11 years working with the UN, World Bank, and many other institutions, fighting for and creating technology systems, connecting a ton of people to do development work in my hometown in Afghanistan, later on in South Asia, and in the end here in DC. All throughout this time and still today, I'm inspired by this idea of a fierce response that includes many people, small, solid, direct, and scalable solutions. In 2017, the simple idea that anyone, anywhere in the world who creates arts or crafts should be able to sell it to anyone, anywhere, through our dear internet. That is now called a SEAL buy good. Initially, I didn't think it was fair that a woman in Bamyan or Nuristan province in Afghanistan could not sell her products 20 years after e-commerce and at a time when Amazon had already IPO'd and most of the developed world was using e-commerce. Yesterday, I posted a story of Camila, a blind woman in Kabul that brought together other disabled people and they sell their products through our platform. People buy these products in California, Texas, and here in DMV, all through our platform. This cycle has now happened for over 4,000, majority of whom are women, artisans, and thousands of handmade products are now sold. COVID happened through the process. We kept going in Afghanistan. We expanded our support to Turkish artisans. And it seems like every country we look up to has something special to offer. 15 months ago, after the withdrawal of the US troops from Afghanistan, is when I actually understood the true value of our work. Fierce, direct response was the only thing that worked. Our usage of technology obviously amplified that. At a time when our development community was evacuating, the economy and the banking sector in Afghanistan had totally collapsed. Our software was expanding throughout the whole country. We helped in a rapid scale, in a short time, till today, 500,000 people. Our overhead to help these 500,000 people in Afghanistan, starting with disabled people, to women who were teachers who would get their normal pay, were not allowed to work anymore, and many others. All these families are identified through our Umaid ID systems, which translates into hope. All the distribution is done by our Atalan members, who is local for heroes, just like you get your food to your home. For the Afghan people, this fierce approach created their Etsy for handmade items, GoFundMe, and Uber Eats all together to raise funds, dispatch, and receive direct aid. Over 10,000 Americans used our platform to send direct aid to people. What are the odds that I was going to be standing here and talking to you all today had it not been for the fact that I knew things can be dramatically better for me? I fiercely pursued doing better initially because I knew there was no other option. I know just like any time that I can remember in my life, and maybe more this time, the crises are fierce and very loud. At the same time, I also believe very strongly that if we do work together on fierce responses, not weak responses, fierce responses, small, solid, direct, and scalable solutions, will have a great shot at a much better future despite some people's dark views of the future. For those here tonight who can help us grow our footprint, check out our platform, talk to me. I'm going to be here for 3 months. There's no reason why the next big thing in tech is not a platform that helps millions of people globally do better. There is no reason why it can't be here in DC, in the SID community, and beyond that, where we send direct aid to countries like Afghanistan and any other countries that we want to do good in. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to the SEAL team and community, all our backers. Thank you, Julie, Catherine, SID board, Will, and everyone else involved in making this happen. Thank you for honoring me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wade Warren. In my day job, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for International Development at Deloitte. And in my other day job, I am the Chair of the Board of SID-US. I'm really glad to be here. As Catherine said, it's been a long 3-year break, and we're so delighted to be able to be together again. And I've seen so many old friends and colleagues that I have really enjoyed the evening. I feel so privileged to help lead SID-US. We have the greatest board of directors in the business, I think. Almost all of them are here this evening, and I'm sure you've had a chance to say hello to them. I can't thank SID's outstanding president, Catherine Rafelson, enough for all she does to make SID what it is. And SID has a small but mighty staff. Julie, Malavika, Dan, Liz, Pebbles, and Noah, I see you up there. As Catherine mentioned, the Society for International Development is dedicated to convening our community to discuss important issues, to provide education and information about foreign assistance, and to bring along the next generation of international development professionals. Our members are drawn from government, from for-profits, from nonprofits, universities, foundations, think tanks. We like to say that we're the town square for the development community. And earlier this year, we changed our name from SID Washington to SID United States to recognize that development actors live and work all across the country. They're not concentrated like they used to be primarily in Washington. And we aspire to be the town square for people who care about development wherever they live in the United States. So now it's my very happy responsibility to introduce this year's recipient of our Award for Outstanding Leadership in International Development. Over the years, SID has honored men and women who have devoted their lives to lifting up the poor of the world. From the legislative branch, we've honored Representatives Nita Lowey and Jim Colby, and Senators John Kerry and Richard Lugar. From the executive branch, we've honored Peace Corps directors Aaron Williams and Carrie Hessler-Radlett, and USAID administrators Andrew Natsios and Peter McPherson. And I'm told that Peter McPherson is here with us tonight. Peter, if you're there, can you stand up and wave? Thank you, Peter. From the United Nations, we've honored Henrietta Fore and Amina Mohammed and so many others. So Congresswoman Lee, you are in great company and you add prestige to our roster of awardees. So let me tell you a little bit about Barbara Lee. Congressman Lee was born in El Paso, Texas, to a military family. Her father was a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, and she learned early on the value of service to country. Her parents also taught her to fight for what was right, no matter the consequences. When she was a teenager, she moved with her family to California, and she has called the Golden State home ever since. She put herself through Mills College in Oakland as a single mother of 2 sons and received her master's degree from the University of California, Berkeley. As president of the Mills College Black Student Union, Lee invited Representative Shirley Chisholm to speak on campus and then went on to work on Chisholm's 1972 presidential campaign, an experience that set her irrevocably on a path toward politics. After college, she worked for Congressman Ron Dellums, rising over the course of 11 years from an intern to his chief of staff. Eventually, she decided to run for office herself and was elected in 1990 to the California State Assembly. She served there until 1996 when she was elected to the state Senate. 2 years later, she was elected to Congress representing her beloved Oakland. She has been re-elected 12 more times since then, always receiving more than 80% of the votes cast. In Congress, Barbara Lee has been dedicated to social and economic justice, international peace, and civil and human rights. She has particularly focused on addressing hunger, protecting the environment, universal health care, just immigration policies, reproductive health care rights, affordable housing, and the prevention and treatment of HIV/AIDS. Congresswoman Lee serves on the Committee on the Budget and on the powerful Committee on Appropriations. There, she is the chair of the Subcommittee on State and Foreign Operations, at least through the remainder of this year, because as we know, there will be changes in leadership coming next year. As chair of the subcommittee, she helps to oversee our country's foreign affairs agencies and has been a leading voice for international development and for smart American foreign policy. Among many other roles, Barbara Lee is a former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, chair emeritus of the Progressive Caucus, and co-chair of the Health Task Force of the Asian Pacific American Caucus. As a member of the House Democratic leadership, she is the highest-ranking African-American woman in the U.S. Congress. Congresswoman Lee, for all that you've done for our community and for the poor around the world, we are so happy to present you with our Society's Award for Outstanding Leadership in International Development. Congresswoman Lee.
Good evening. First of all, what an honor. Thank you so much, Wayne, for this really humbling moment for me in my life and this honor for doing the work that I have no option to do. And I want to thank the Society for International Development, the board, and all of you for your tremendous leadership. And just say to you that this award I accept humbly on behalf of my constituents of the former 13th, now 12th Congressional District, and also on behalf of Team Lee. And I just want to recognize my Ledge Director, Gregory Adams, who's here, because you know, there's Greg, because we do this together. This is not Barbara Lee, this is like Team Lee. And half of my former staff now is over at USAID. So they're unbelievable people. So thank you all again for everything. And Nasra, let me just thank you for your story. I tell you, your leadership, your bravery, you inspire myself, and I know you inspire everyone here tonight. So thank you, and congratulations to you. And thank you, Catherine. You consistently work to convene community U.S.-based development professionals. As an experienced, getting to know you, associate executive, private sector leader, committed development professional. Boy, you have the right combination of everything, experiences and talent. Give her a round of applause to lead this very passionate, thank you, and diverse and impactful community of activists for change. So you have truly come for such a time as this. And not least, I want to thank all of you for your hard work and advocacy. SID members work each day to turn taxpayer investments into real partnerships for peace, and sometimes on the Hill I have to remind people, P is not a cuss word. It's a good word. You know, use the word peace, right? Peace and prosperity. Those are words we should say more and more and more, and not be afraid of the word peace. And so, yes, as chair of the House SFOPS committee, I'm constantly making the case to my colleagues, constituents, and the broader public about why investing in making the world a better place helps us achieve our goals, and that's peace and prosperity for everyone. Your experience and expertise and your examples, they clearly show why and how these investments matter. And so thank you all for your efforts. And you all know that there are three legs of our national security stool: defense, diplomacy, and development. Well, now, almost 2 years, when I took over the gavel for the Appropriations Subcommittee on State and Foreign Operations, I have been determined to rebalance these legs of that stool so that development and diplomacy, so that they're recognized by making sure that there's more parity in our investments. Because not only is it the right thing to do to achieve global peace and security, it's also in our national interest. And so I've been working very diligently with you all to make sure that members of Congress understand that we have to have a bit more parity with our funding priorities. Defense is what, 800 billion? And my subcommittee is about 64 billion. Now, come on. Let's have some justice here. Yep. And also, when I took over the committee, our work was consumed with the COVID pandemic. COVID threatens still the health and well-being of millions around the globe. It also created compounding problems for people struggling with poverty, hunger, and weak health systems. It forced professionals abroad to depart from their duty stations, and it undermined our ability to communicate and work closely to build the partnerships and team efforts that are at the core of our development work. COVID offered a clear example of how the safety, well-being, and prosperity of America is tied to that of our neighbors around the world. We all saw how in an interconnected world, our fate was tied to how well other countries were able to handle these health threats, and that there was no way to protect ourselves without working together. And right now, we're in the process of trying to negotiate, this omnibus bill. And we're trying to make sure that we have COVID investments, because we need to once again lead. And right now, we're looking at, I don't think it's enough, but we're looking at maybe a $10 billion investment in COVID relief. But we're still fighting for more. But just know that we've got to do better. We've done a lot under this administration, and we have a long way to go. But I have to commend the Biden administration for really taking this on. And the response has been saving lives and livelihoods. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Sometimes we forget that. And so all of you who have been working with USAID, State Department, everyone who's worked on the domestic front and international front on COVID, just know that your sacrifices and what we have done is truly remarkable. And sometimes we forget how many lives we did save. And so thank you very much. But we have to be honest, as compelling as this argument is to us in the room, that it has failed to inspire the concerted and consistent effort that we need to defeat this virus at home and abroad. A year ago, experts and advocates identified the need for continued, robust investment in shared efforts to end the COVID pandemic for everyone. And many of my colleagues and I, again, as I said, we're still fighting for these investments. At times, the shared spirit of solidarity that guides our efforts has been a tough sell, as you know, but we cannot give up. We need to recommit our efforts to make the case for how we build a brighter shared future and how we strengthen the threads of the shared garment of our destiny. And I was recently at COP27 in Egypt with our great speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and once again, she led on the world stage as a global leader, and we talked about, in many of our discussions, the commitment that the developed world must make to the developing world in terms of the climate crisis that is impacting so many around the world. And so we have to redouble our efforts to address the planet, which is on fire right now. And we're connected to the developing world, so we must do this together. And I think that we have many tools to do that, one of which is a framework that we're all familiar with, and that's the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. The SDGs. And Lord knows I've been trying to explain to my colleagues what the SDGs are. So I had to introduce a resolution so they could read it so they would know. Now they do. The UN SDGs provide a framework for building partnerships, coordinating efforts, and mobilizing resources. Because of the process of consultation that drive the SDGs, they are perhaps the most broadly legitimate framework we've ever had for a guided shared effort to strengthen rights and to expand prosperity. The SDGs are not just aspirations or branding, they are commitments that we all hold each other accountable for achieving. That includes here in our own country, in the United States of America. But they will only take on the role of concrete guidance and shared purpose if the world's largest donor uses them in this way. It's more than just U.S. leadership. It is U.S. responsibility and accountability. The United States is contributing resources toward meeting the SDGs goals, but we still resist framing our engagement in terms of the SDGs. Why, I have no idea. People in other countries understand them. The United Nations understands them. People see themselves and they understand the struggles to achieve the SDGs. When the United States fails to work with and through the SDGs, we miss an opportunity to be the best partner we can be in our global community. Excuse me. We really do. The SDGs can help us to strengthen our development efforts. Especially in Washington, we can spend too much time talking about dollars and not enough about what we are trying to achieve and holding ourselves accountable for the results. Now, make no mistake, the United States, our own country, is not exempt from the SDGs. And we need to be doing our part to ensure that all people in America can claim the rights and opportunities that the SDGs promise them. We, in our own country, we have significant challenges with poverty, preventable diseases, clean water, inequality, and are all linked to our struggles to deliver on the promise of inclusive, accountable governments. The people of Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi, they were there at COP27, raising the issues of safe drinking water. We here in America know all too well about the fault lines in our democracy and how these fractures have disastrous human consequences. So as chair of SFOPS, I have worked to make the SDGs more central to our U.S. global development agenda. We've worked very hard to do that and will continue. Will continue. And I've challenged this administration to think through how its efforts are not only organized around the SDGs, but implemented and communicated in that framing. And so the FY23 House SFOPS bill includes $30 billion in economic and health assistance to countries framed around the SDGs. So we have to do that. Are we challenging ourselves? Are we challenging ourselves to ask with every dollar how we are advancing this shared of goals? We must do that. Are we talking to local partners about these investments and how they are furthering their own commitments to the SDGs? Are we asking our Congress and local and state governments how they're forging ahead on SDGs for their marginalized communities in our own country? I'm also working to make sure that the SDGs guide our domestic policy. Now, in the past two Congresses, I've introduced a House resolution supporting the SDGs and expressing that they apply to our own efforts to fight poverty and to build inclusive rights and prosperity here in the United States. So going forward, I'm working on legislation that's going to build on this commitment. And I hope that I really can count on you for your support and for you to tell your members of Congress and explain to them what the SDGs are and to support this resolution. This is so important in our progress in this country. Our engagement, it can't be business as usual. I'm kind of an out-of-the-box person because we know what hasn't worked, so we do have to think and work out of the box. We must acknowledge that the last few years, in many respects, have thrown us badly off track. And so not only must we move forward, we've got a lot of catching up to do. So we urgently need to re-engage to determine how we make the most and most meaningful progress toward the SDGs by 2030. We have to determine how we're going to end HIV and AIDS by 2030. 2030 is our goal. So we can't abandon the SDGs. We must do everything now to redouble our efforts and to engage urgently on rethinking how we unlock their full promise. So I know that there is good work going on to think through new approaches and new ideas. And I'm eager to engage with all of you on this challenge. And I'm confident that the shared passion, expertise, and creativity, and this requires a lot of creativity, and you all are very creative here, and I'm confident that you all will give us a real chance of determining how we get the world back on track to achieve the SDGs by 2030. To be clear, the real solutions, yes, they'll come from this room, but they'll also come from leaders and activists and marginalized people around the world who are working to achieve the SDGs in their own communities. What we can do is make sure that we are not only listening, but amplifying the voices and efforts of those leaders to make sure that the United States is being the most supportive partner possible, and that means living up to our commitments on all fronts. And so I stand ready to work in this new Congress to make sure that, yes, we provide the funds and the tools, the financial, the legal, the policy, and oversight tools to make sure that all of us can live up to this partnership, which is an ideal, but we've got to move toward that ideal as quickly as possible. Together, using the SDGs, we can make the case for why America needs to be fully committed to this fight and how we can prevail, and how, given our three legs of our national security policy, development, diplomacy, and defense, how the SDGs can begin to rebalance our national security policy by making sure that diplomacy and development gain parity through the SDGs with defense. And so thank you again for this tremendous honor, and keep up the fight, because a fight it is.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Lee. That was inspiring, and I especially appreciated it. I think so many in the room did. This full-throated endorsement of the SDGs is something that we all work for every day, so thank you very, very much. That really wraps it up. I wanted to thank everybody for your attention and for your support for the Society for International Development United States chapter. I do want to remind everybody that there is an after party for young professionals. It takes place starting basically right now, and I'm told it will go till midnight. It's at Proper 21, which is on F Street, just not far from here. The after party is sponsored by the Alliance for International Youth Development, the International Youth Foundation, and Making Sense. And I am told that all are welcome, no matter your age, as long as you are young at heart. So thank you again, everybody, and have a great evening. Thank you.